Our first guest sees this story from one side. He is, of course, an actor of note and has performed on the corporation. But in what now seems to be his day job as the leader of the Reclaim Party, I feel sure he cannot be counted on as one of Auntie's friends. He is the Laurence Fox, and he joins us now. Thanks for coming on board the Sputnik. The royal family and the BBC in potentially existential crisis at the same time. To which of the two, or maybe both, do you attribute this crisis?
Hello and good afternoon, George and Gayatri. I think the BBC have been in terminal decline for quite some time now, and the fact that they rehired Martin Bashir just goes to show how arrogant and unwilling to change that they are. And obviously to see, I think the royal family have actually done pretty well in the last week. Certainly Prince William made a very, very strong and powerful statement about the BBC, and that was important and actually kingly, because I was starting to lose any faith I had in the monarchy, but other than Her Majesty, obviously. So the BBC are on their last legs, I genuinely hope. The lunatics are in charge of the asylum there.
Of course, people on the right don't like this idea of taxing everyone, putting the money into a pot, and having a non-commercial, non-capitalist, if you like, national broadcaster. Is that where you're coming from on this?
No, I believe that I'm very happy with the idea of a national broadcaster. I just think the national broadcaster would probably benefit everybody by upholding the values that the nation subscribes to, rather than undermining them. And the BBC just seem to operate on one singular woke nation-hating agenda. And I don't see any unity. I don't see any upholding of as an institution, as in all the institutions in the United Kingdom seem to have been taken over by people that do not like the United Kingdom and do not like Britain and do not like, simple values of equality under the law and these things. So I'm not crying or worried to watch it receives the drilling that it deserves at the moment.
The promotion for that is what it was of Martin Bashir, not 25 years ago, but just 5 years ago, to, of all things, a religious affairs editor, is the proximate cause. But as I was just saying in the introduction, it has been one damn thing after another, hasn't it?
It has. And, we forget with all of their covering up of the Jimmy Savile and the Rolf Harris, etc., the smearing of Cliff Richard, who has always been a pretty private man. And for them to have a helicopter hanging out over his house as the police arrived is just typical BBC. They're just very, very arrogant. And I actually think that what's happening is that we're having a look at all of our institutions and we're saying, do we approve of them? And are they worth being, there's no option here, you have to pay, otherwise you go to prison. And it's disproportionately women that are threatened with prosecution and jail time over this. 70%, I think, are women. I've had a letter myself saying, in the last couple of days, saying we're coming to get you for non-payment of the BBC TV licence. And I'm just like, surely your money would be spent better elsewhere.
What would be the alternative to the licence fee? Subscription, like the BBC becomes a Netflix or an Amazon? Other options are available?
Well, it's very sad, isn't it? Because you look at the alternatives and some of those are unbearably unwatchable as well. Everyone I know, and myself included, spend more time trying to decide what to watch on Netflix or Amazon than they do actually watching Netflix or Amazon. So the BBC, the last time the BBC said anything that I really gave any care to whatsoever with their reporting of the dodgy dossier in Iraq in 2003. And I thought that's some decent journalism going on there. And since then, it's just been a horrible descent into wokery. Yes, I think they have to go out into the free market. And yes, I think they will still have a large audience there as the CNN of the UK, which is essentially what they've become.
Laurence, let's turn to the royals, because it's really not a small thing that the future king made such a powerful statement condemning the BBC. I mean, this long-standing British institution. What do you make of that?
I think he's increasingly in recent times been making a statement for his position probably as our next king, ahead of his father. Yeah, you know, in these funny times, one can imagine that could take place. To have one's mother hounded and abused, and, you know, for whether she courted the media or not, which she did, I think it's criminal, and I think if this was any other organisation in the world, the power switch would have been turned off at the mainframe straight away, and everyone would have been asked to find a new job, similar to the News of the World.
The institutions that you adumbrate are all to some extent not what they were. Some would say hollowed out. I'm so old. I grew up in a Britain where people respected the police, they respected the judges, they respected the BBC, they respected Parliament and the civil service even. None of those things are automatic now, are they?
What do you mean? That the respect is not automatic?
The respect is not automatic, no.
Yes, I think, you know, that some of the many benefits of social media and, you know, increased people's increased ability to complain or show dissent towards certain institutions has its positives and its negatives. But it is very sad to watch national institutions, as you say, be hollowed out from within under the auspices of a certain ideology. Now, people can disagree politically. I have no problem with that at all. But what I do have a problem with is 95% of our institutions having exactly the same view about everything. And, you know, that there's no argument here. There's no old school politics where we can disagree. We can go, well, I make a case for this and you make a case for that, and we can argue it together. Now there's one rule, one doctrine, and if you don't bow down at the altar of it, you're removed from society. And I think that the BBC should not have subscribed to that mantra, along with all the other institutions, including our own, the Royal College of Music, I hear today, are decolonising their own instruments.
Even Shakespeare is to be decolonised. As an actor, that must trouble you.
Oh, just don't even get me started on how awful that is. You know, how dare they? How absolutely dare they do that to a piece of writing? How dare we look at history from 2021 and think that we can turn around to the greatest playwright in the English language and go, well, Titus Andronicus is a bit racist. It's like, come on, guys, for goodness sake. This is not about critical race theory. This is about a wordsmith putting words together and, you know, to form some of the greatest soliloquies in the history of writing. So anyone who wants to decolonize anything is going to have to come up against me, who's going to want to stop that, because it's not fair. It's not fair for our children. Our job is to be custodians over our language and our culture and pass it on for them to debate.
You can be continuity Shakespeare, and that can. I'm sure there's life in that role. Having said all of that, who do you blame for the hollowing out of our institutions? Why did everyone go so quietly into that good night? After all, if you look at today's House of Commons, even amazingly, the House of Lords, this paradigm of consensus, an ironclad or perhaps velvet-clad consensus, seems to be virtually absolute.
Well, we're living in an age where we encourage emotional vulnerability and cowardice. So, you know, these are laudable qualities. You only have to look at Prince Harry committing some form of emotional suicide on television to see that this stuff sells, and it's very sad. I think that I was brought up in a world where it was important to have a level of stoicism about things, and I think that now we lionize victimhood, and I think that's really sad. And I certainly think it's sad in terms of politics, because what happens is you're not able to have a reasonable debate about stuff. You'll have a footballer walking across a pitch with a Palestinian flag, and then you'll have a guy thrown out for holding a Jewish flag, now an Israeli flag. Now, in the olden days, that would have been a conversation. It would have been a debate. Someone would have said, and someone would have presented arguments for the Palestinian cause and the Israeli cause. But now it's like there's only one way of looking at things, and there's only one way right. George, you know this yourself. You know, from your position, you have argued politically and passionately about certain issues, and you have been robustly reacted to, and that's cool, and that's the nature of politics. But now there is only one answer, and the answer is whatever the woke people tell you it is. And if you don't bow down at their altar, it's game over.
Not many stiff upper lips in Britain today.
No. Well, Her Majesty has a stiff upper lip. I think there are stiff upper lips. I just think that what we're crying out for actually is a bit of activism. There's a bit of activism, and just people who are interested in political engagement and just interested in their future, their children's future, and the knowledge. You know, I spent 10 years working opposite Kevin Whately, whose politics couldn't have been more different from mine. And not once in 10 years did we ever have a boring moment. And we disagree passionately about so many things, and we remain excellent friends. And that is how politics should be. It shouldn't be, if you don't share my politics, we can never speak again. You must be cancelled from society. That's cowardice, and it leads to a weakened society, and it leaves us open to all sorts of manipulation that we're witnessing now.
Lastly, what next for you, Laurence? What's the balance now between your acting work and your political work?
Well, interestingly, I was having spent 2 years being cancelled by the acting profession. I've just been offered a film, actually, which is weird. I'm not sure I have time to do it. I'm going to head towards Batley and Spen because I have a problem with the free speech issue there. And seeing as none of the main political parties are going to deal with it, then someone else is going to have to. So that's where I'll be heading next week.
Well, I might even run into you. Thank you very much, Laurence Fox, for joining us.
Thanks, George.